Hi, this is Alka Madan from Global Women Power, and Global Women Power is a 501c involved in the empowerment of women, to say, but our main task is to build up our network, a strong network where we can all depend upon each other. And in this series, which is we named it as Meet Our Sheroes, we have met so many of the strongest possible, strong-willed, admirable women that we are very happy and honored to have you here, Catherine. And
Thank you.
because I will leave it to you to introduce yourself, and the way we progress on this is your present, what you're doing, and from where you started and where you're going.
Okay. Well,
Over to you.
I am Catherine Fitzgerald, and I am in California myself, in Central California. I'm first and foremost the mother of 3 grown men now who are my boys, and they are all, I'm happy to say, graduated from educational institutions, one a doctor, one a historian, and the other a philosopher, all of them gainfully employed. So I consider that a mother's success,
Of course.
But my career life has been extremely diverse. Currently, I'm an executive coach. I own my own company, Brass Tacks with Heart, executive coaching. And I work with businesses that are scaling or have gotten through that beginning stage. They're profitable, they're doing well, but suddenly the founder, owner, CEO has found themselves the hub of all operations and all activities and not able to be the visionary. And so I work with them on ways of communicating with their team to develop thinkers rather than to be the doer and to constantly be the decision maker. So because when we can elevate the team's contribution, then we can really create a scalable business. And let's see, where have I been? I have had a very diverse background. I started in be financier right out of college. I went to UCLA, and I grew up in Fresno, although I was born in Seattle, Washington. I always joke my parents moved to California before I got a vote, and I was 3. And when I graduated from high school, I was very bound and determined to go to UCLA, and I did. And graduated, and then I had sworn I was never coming back to Fresno, but of course the summer before I graduated, I met the father of my children and moved back to Fresno. And I started working in beef finance lending, so doing consolidation loans for families. It taught me a lot about financials and collecting how many bills they had that they then dumped onto their mortgage. Is not a great plan, but that was what my job was, and I did that for 2 years. And then I worked in the health insurance industry. Started out as a customer service agent for a marketing arm of one of the higher end insurance companies in terms of health insurance benefits. That would be Principal Financial Group. And within 18 months, I became a regional salesperson for them. And they had 42 regional sales offices in the United States, and 40 of the regional sales managers were men. And I was one of 2 women. The other woman was in her 50s at the time and really had no interest in mentoring me. You have to understand, this was in the late 80s. So it was a different world. We were challenged to be one of the guys and really to excel despite the fact we were women instead of because we were women. I had 9 employees, and the corridor in the center of California was my territory. So from Modesto to Bakersfield generally, and from the coast to the inner the Eastern Sierras. And I did that for 9 years. My first son was born and we adopted him when he was born in 1993, and I stayed with the company, I believe, another 5 years. And my middle son was born, and I went back to work for about 8 months, and I just thought, I can't be out of town and have something happen to my children, because I was married to a teacher who couldn't just drop everything and go. So we made a decision that I would stay home for a while, which I did. And then I went to work for a nonprofit that was a Central California children's choir. And we had 5 choirs and 225 kids. And I ran all the operations and did all of the communications with the parents, and all the concert arrangements and the programs and the travel arrangements. And if it doesn't sound like it ate my life, and it was in my living room with 2 little kids around my neck. And so I did that for about 5 years. And then I went on to have my 3rd son. Actually, he was born right before I left the choir. And when he went to kindergarten, then I thought, okay, now it's time to go back to work. And at that point, I did some networking and ended up as the executive director, CEO of Catholic Charities for the Diocese of Fresno. And that was a colossal undertaking. It was 60 employees in 7 locations, and more than full-time for sure. And I started in the summer, which was a blessing, because being married to a teacher, he was able to stay home with the kids while I went from 0 to 70 hours a week, because I walked into quite a mess. The first day I started, the accounting manager quit. And 3 weeks before I started, the executive director had walked out. And 2 weeks later, the development director left. And so I was in a situation where they had 42 checking accounts, none of which had been reconciled in 4 years. They did not have any current audits. They were 4 years behind in their independent audits. And they had federal and state grant monies that they had not returned or responded to any requests for reports for quite some time. So the barn was burning when I got there. And over the next 5 years, I was able to, with a lot of help from key people and a lot of really talented people who were very dedicated in getting it all together, we collapsed all the checking accounts into one and rebuilt the general ledger based on what we could figure out from the past, and got through the audits and made a lot of apology notes to all the grantors, and everybody allowed us to have a do-over, and we got it together. And I'm happy to say that today the organization is still standing. But after 5 years, I was really ready to move on to something else. It was a lot. And during the time that I was there, my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And so I went through quite a bit, juggling 3 little boys, actually a teenager and a couple of younger boys, and also, managing what was going on in the agency, and then getting him back and forth to Stanford. And I'm happy to say he responded to chemotherapy the first time, and then 22 months later, it came back. And sadly, he had to have a stem cell transplant, but joyfully, he did survive, but our marriage did not. And so today we are good friends, and we have, these grown kids that we love and adore, and we're both, doing our own things. But when I left the agency, I went to work for a bank. And so the Fresno First, then Community Bank, was where I went to work. And I started their electronic payments department. My boss at the time said, I'm going to give you a pad of paper and a pencil and send you out into the desert to build a department. And so that was kind of my ground up experience. Fresno First Bank is an employee-owned bank. One of the first to play what is called the great game of business. And that is a system of open book management that allows employees to understand the financials of the company and their role in helping the company to succeed. And in that process, they also learn to equate their success with the success of the organization and their security. And so I was a big fan of that, having spent the last 5 years trying to put Catholic Charities out of business, is what I used to say. You know, when we can end the line at the door, then we will have succeeded. And unfortunately, that is not something that came true. And I really, when I discovered financial literacy training and what a difference it can make in the lives of the employees that understand that their paycheck is their revenue and their expenses, their overhead is their rent, and you know, things like that. When they can make that connection, when they learn it at work, it changes the way they manage their personal finances as well. And that really was a big instigator for me after 7 years of being with the bank to look at becoming a coach. And so my first step into coaching was to become a Great Game of Business certified coach. And I did that for 3 years and I really enjoyed it, but it was very programmatic, very much like training, because it's very clear what the steps are to implement the Great Game of Business. So although I met incredible people and I loved working with the clients, it was very much a training job more than a coaching job. And as you can hear from my diverse background, I had a lot more to offer to clients than just how to do the Great Game of Business. And so that's when I really took a year to spend some time looking in and figuring out what really made me tick and what really brought me joy in helping clients. And that's during that process, we discovered the name Brass Tacks with Heart, because the coach that I was working with said to me one day, "You're really, you know, you get down to brass tacks." And he says, "But you've got so much heart." And then it grew from there. And that's really, you know, heart-centered leadership to me is really important. Having compassion for the people that work for you and not making up stories about why they do things, but helping them to grow and helping them to be a better version of themselves. And so that's me.
Wonderful you.
Thank you.
You know, because I have interviewed so many of us, you know, I will say, because in everybody I see part of me and I see what am I missing. And, you know, when you reflect back, like you reflected back, so it seems like a scripted version of your life, you know, like, okay, you did this, you did that, and, you know, that's how it appears to. And so you are coaching people now, and how do you place the importance of coaching in your journey? You know, because coaching is extremely important, I say that, but not many people, you know, go for it. And I want to put this message to them that how important is it to have a coach and not have a coach?
Oh, having a coach for me has been a game changer. And, you know, it is one step beyond a mentor, because I think mentors, you find if you're blessed, you find incredible mentors in your life, but you largely choose them because you aspire to, you know, be more like them, or that they are doing something that, you know, inspires you. And they take an interest in you. But it's an interest that is not predictable. You know, it's happenstance. It happens. But with a coach, especially a coach that is walking the same path. So as a coach, having a coach for me has been really, it can be a lonely job to be a coach, because you're working largely, you know, one-on-one and alone in your office. You don't have the colleagues that I had at the bank, or, you know, and so having another coach that will challenge you, that will lay down, look, this is what I see you doing. Do you see what you're doing? You know, and then you told me you want to get here, but
So
you're
you're going
doing
there.
these things over here. So it's like hiring someone to call you out. And, when you said stubborn, strong-willed women, I laughed inside because I've been called that a time or two. And, often I'll blame it on my red hair, but it's, it's in the DNA. And so having somebody that will speak the truth to you, even if it's not what you want to hear, is really important. And they also give you wings when you are feeling defeated in a situation and you feel like, I don't know where to turn. I don't know what to do next. Everything's on fire. Where do I start? They can be the logical voice in your head that says, okay, make a list, build a house. Where's the foundational problem that you need to fix? How do we create a safe way to go up from here? And those are things that I value in my coaching life.
So would your story have been different if you had a coach all this journey?
Oh, yes. Yes. One of the great epiphanies I had was when I was working with a group, and one of the gals came to me and she said, I'm really want to develop my career path, and I don't think I can. It was one of the teammates, so I'm working with the CEO, and this teammate came to me and she wanted some guidance about, where to go, what to do. And it was very interesting to have that conversation because I was thinking back in my life and the people that how I ended up in my jobs was not very strategic. And in fact, I've joked many times, my father, God rest his soul, is not alive, but when he was alive and I came home from college, he wanted to make real darn sure that I wasn't going to just park on the couch and have bonbons, that I had a college degree. Now I need to get a job. So every single day after graduation, when I was living at home, my father would come in the door and say, "Did you get a job yet?" Did you get a job yet? Every day until I had a job. So it wasn't, the questions were not the same questions that kids ask today, because she was like, I want to be fulfilled and I have this strength that I'm not getting to use and all these things. And I'm thinking, I didn't think about that. I just wanted a job. I didn't, so yes, my life would have been different, but coaching was not the big thing back then. I'm in let's see, my 7th decade of life. So when you look at that, you realize things have changed.
But I think, that makes you a better coach now, because you learned it by falling and learning, and that makes you a seasoned person.
Yeah, seasoned is very true. I'm sorry, I'm like, my light is too bright, and without it, I'm not sure. Can you still me? That's better.
Yeah.
I do find it. I'm in a sisterhood of coaches, and we have a community, and one of the coaches is my contemporary, and she was talking about she is building a group of sages, and I'm like, yeah, I guess that's where I'm at in my life, which is it's fulfilling on many levels. Yeah.
So one more question, which is part of the conversation we are having, this open book management, what did you say?
Yes, you said.
Can
That's correct.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? That is really of interest. Yeah.
Sure. So this was born out of a creative response to a trying situation. So the gentleman who wrote the book, The Great Game of Business, which has been on the bestseller list of leadership books for over 30 years, is Jack Stack. So Jack Stack grew up in the automotive industry and working in a manufacturing plant in Chicago as a young man. His father had done the same. And then he rose up through the ranks of management and became a plant manager for International Harvester. And in 1983, he was living in Springfield, Missouri, and that he was the plant manager of the International Harvester plant there. And they began to have financial difficulties, and they had been closing their plants around the country to collapse into profitability, which to me is an oxymoron, but that's what they were doing. So they called him, and he had already closed 2 or 3 plants, I guess. And so they called him and said, hey, you're gonna have to close the plant. And he was really in love with Springfield, Missouri. He thought it was just a wonderful place to raise children. And he and his wife had been there for a long enough time that he felt a real obligation. And there were 119, 120 families that were depending on salaries from this plant. And it was a very small town. And so he went and sat down with his department heads and said, what are we going to do? This is going to be closed, and we can't afford to lose all these jobs. What are we going to do? And somebody popped off and said, let's buy it and start our own company. And so he said, well, you guys go home and talk to your wives and figure out how much money you can take out of your pension. And I'm going to call International Harvester and find out how much they want. So they did, and he did. And International Harvester wanted $9 million. And they came back around the table, and these 12 men, 2 of their wives said, you can't put any money in that. And the other 10 all said, we can put in $10,000. So they had $100,000 on a $9 million price tag. And so they went looking for a loan. And 52 banks later, or 54 banks later, I get the details kind of mixed up, they found a loan. But we're talking 1983. So the economy in 1983 in the United States was, 22% unemployment and 18% loans, and things were kind of crazy. So they got an $8.9 million loan at 18%. And they came back to Springfield and said, okay, now what do we do? Like the dog that caught the pickup truck, And Jack said, oh, the first thing we have to do is issue stock and give everybody some skin in the game, because we need to be 100% employee owned, so that everybody knows we have got to get this stroke, the loan payment every month, and we got to, move forward to do it. So they did that. And then they began to teach people how their actions impact the profit and loss statement, and how, if we have direct expenses and we reduce them, that goes directly to the bottom line in terms of savings. And if we increase our revenue, but we don't decrease our costs, and we increase our costs, then we've got a problem. And so they went through basic financial literacy training with all of these blue collar employees in this plant. What they were was a tractor remanufacturing plant. So we're talking the big old harvester tractors, and they had people working on them as they go through the plant. One of the things that, just an example of things that they thought of to save money, was that every single time a new tractor came through, they put a new pair of gloves on. And somebody said, well, if the gloves don't have holes on them, if we don't have to throw them away, we can, keep them until we end up, needing to replace them. And so they saved a whole bunch of money on direct expenses, because not all of the guys in the plant were changing their gloves every single time. Small change, but it's the mindset that changed. Right. And so we look forward, 30 years now, and Jack is the CEO of SRC Holding Corporation. Over the last time I checked, it was 10 or 11 business units, one of which was a coaching arm. Because what happened is, 3 years in, the employees had figured out that cash flow was really critical to being able to grow and expand, and to be able to, be profitable. And so what they did is they paid off their loan in 3 years. They put their minds to it, and they paid off $9 million in 3 years, and of course, plus interest at 18%. So the plant got put on the map in the manufacturing world because of that. And
Mm.
lots of companies were coming from all over the country and all over the world to take tours and to see, what did you do? How did you do this? And so that's when the Great Game of Business coaching arm was born. But all of the rest of the plants are all over the country, and one in Canada. And they're all in the automotive industry.
Mm.
And so Jack Stack is, like I said, still the chairman of the board and CEO of the corporation, but he has evolved it to a point where the stock was issued at 10 cents a share.
Mm.
And today, I don't know what the share price is, but I can tell you in 2021, it was $726 a share. And so they have retired over 100 people who had over $300 million in their retirement.
What a model to follow, huh?
Incredible.
Mm.
Incredible. And an incredible organization. And I'm still very much a fan. So what is open book management? It's really having your employees understand how the money flows through the business and then set their own targets, because people support what they create. So when that company decided in 1983, gee, if we pay off this loan fast, we're not going to have all that interest to pay, we're going to save the company a lot of money. They set the target and they met it. And that's how this whole thing has evolved. And today there are thousands of companies around the world that are practicing the Great Game of Business. And I had a great privilege of knowing of many of them. Some really big brands that you would recognize. Originally, Jack Kellenberg, I can't think of the last name. He was the founder of Southwest Airlines. He and Jack Stack were friends. They were a Great Game company. Netflix. There's several that are practicing the Great Game of Business that you would know.
I think it should be like a Bible, go through it and listen. Because employee turnover and unrest and all those things are big barriers to operate a business,
That's right.
And once they own the business, then the whole problem is resolved.
That's true. And you don't have to be employee owned to be a Great Game of Business company. And so there are companies that have financial literacy component and open book, but do not issue stock. They do have a bonus program that is set up as part of the Great Game of Business. There are 3 books. One is the original story of the Great Game of Business, which is really about the original plant and the original guys and how that happened. The next book is Get in the Game, which is the 10 steps of the Great Game of Business. And that's written by Steve Baker and Rich Armstrong. And it's a great read for the mechanics of how they do it. They forecast what's going on in the economy and what's going to change in their business in the next year. They're always looking at pivoting based on what's happening in the world. And they have the collective wisdom of the employees, which is really important. And then the last book that Jack Stack wrote and published was Changing the Game. And that is really the backstory on how financial literacy changes the lives of everyone that it touches, not just the company.
Because that's what I wanted to share with you. Most of the women, they are not financially literate.
Most of the United States is not. I think our education system has really failed our children, in terms of that. I mean, I grew up with grandparents that sat around the table and played cards and, told you about, how many pennies went into a quarter and all that kind of stuff. But I still didn't know what business financials were. And so one of the things I do as part of my Brass Tacks with Heart company is I work on financial literacy, not necessarily open book, because not every owner wants to open their books, but it does help when your employees have the ability to look at the business and see how money flows through it and how they impact it. And one of the things that I start with is, I was an English major at UCLA. So if I can do this, you can do this. This is not math. This is logic. And there's a difference.
The same question I asked one of the CFO that, how do you play with numbers? He said, I'm not good at numbers. but I can
Yes.
tell, which direction to go.
Right. And I say that numbers are just stories about people, and we just have to figure out what, who the people are that are the players in the game. But really the numbers are just telling us a story about what's happening in the company.
Right. One last question from me, and then I'll pass it on to Nancy. So, I read this book, Science of Getting Rich. Maybe you must be aware of that, right? Science of Getting Rich.
I'm not sure who's the author.
I won't remember his name right away, but
Okay.
Secret was based on that book.
Oh, okay.
So I always, Napoleon Hill was also basing on his book,
I know that book. Okay. Yes.
Science of Getting Rich. I also read it many times, because every word of that book I tried to analyze, rationalize, etc. So I wanted to know how much money that guy had. So I just have the same question for you. How about the personal finance? Because that is also a key area for many of us.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So are
does the
you
same
asking
logic
me?
apply on the personal
Yeah.
finance?
Oh, absolutely. And what the Changing the Game book, where he illustrates that, is how people begin to see their paycheck as their revenue.
Mhm.
And they see their rent and their car payment and their insurance payment as their overhead.
Mhm.
And they recognize that when they go to the movies, or they go to the grocery store, or they go to to Macy's, they are spending direct cost money, which is, I can control this. And if I save a dollar in the middle, it goes directly to the bottom line. Whereas if I spend more in the middle, it comes directly off the bottom line. So what we teach in the Great Game, when you're understanding what a mistake costs the company, it's not a dollar for dollar exchange. So if they lose a dollar, or make a mistake that costs a dollar, it's not a dollar that goes in the top of the funnel. It has to be the amount of net profit that it takes to create that dollar. And so if it's a 10 cents on the dollar is their profit margin, it's $10 that have to go in the top of the funnel to make a dollar at the bottom. But if you can save it in the middle, it goes directly to the bottom. So when they start to get that whole idea in their heads at work, it's a natural that it happens at home. And, I, having run an agency that served the poor, I will tell you that, I had a few real learning life lessons during that time. One of them was that we had adopted a family at Christmas time that we were going to bring, our children to go and bring them Christmas, because they wouldn't have Christmas without us. And so we bought groceries and we bought gifts, and it actually was me and my family, and then my best girlfriend and her family. And we pulled up in 2 cars, and I had all these gifts, and all the boys, and they were excited to be giving it to this family that was underserved and less fortunate than we. And I should back up to say that we were pretty, I was pretty old school. My kids didn't have a lot of electronic games or any of that kind of stuff, because I wanted them to develop their brains and not just, so we didn't have an Xbox. Now my kids and we bought all these gifts with the idea that we didn't want anything with batteries. We didn't want anything that they had to spend money to enjoy. We wanted them to have things that would last, so we brought all these games and ball and, all these different basketballs and things like that. And they opened the door, and they were in a very tiny apartment. They had a TV that was bigger than our TV. They had speakers, they had an Xbox, and they had a couch, and the refrigerator was empty, but there was all kinds of toys everywhere. And my kids were, I was giving them the look, they're giving me the look, like they have more stuff than we have. They didn't say it, but it was going through their brain, and I knew it was, and I think, so we get to the car, and I said, you have to understand that when you don't have anything, you feel like the only thing you can do is grab what little bit of happiness you can have. And when you don't have financial literacy, you don't understand that if you saved it, you could have a better tomorrow. You just do what is right here, right now, because life is so unpredictable and so fragile in that financial strata. So my kids, you know, it was quite the conversation. And I said, well, they're renting their apartment with a carport, and we live in a house. You know, there's different, there's a long-term planning piece that's missing when you have nothing. And so my mother taught in the
say the last line again. Very nice line you said.
I said it's the short-term gratification, long-term planning is missing when you live in that world of uncertainty. I probably didn't say it the same way. I can never say anything twice the same way. My mother was a teacher at the community college level, and she taught child development, and she had a lot of young women that were on Medi-Cal and welfare that were coming to class to be able to get a higher level of benefit with the government. And that was a process that was very common during the time that she was teaching. And she would be really frustrated because there were people that would come and just fill the seat and get the signature. They were in class, so they got to go get their check. And she said, you know, they could be teachers, they could be this, they could go on and do that. And they could start their own daycare center, you know, all these things, but they don't think that way. They think about right here, right now. And so when I went from Catholic Charities to the bank and learned about financial literacy training, my thought was, man, you know, that is the way to create prosperity in this world, is to employ people and educate them as they work. Because if they are given a carrot and a stick approach, come to this class and then you get a check, there's no incentive to learn. But if they're working and they see a reward and they understand it and it's part of their job, it takes residence in their brain. They learn it and it becomes logical. And I thought that's the way to put Catholic Charities out of business, not, you know. So when we create a world that has jobs for everyone and that we have an opportunity to help them through, to me, an opportunity through dignity, that would be my goal.
My goal too, you know.
I would get off my soapbox now, though. I'm sorry.
Beautiful. Because, you know, I will use all the references you have given about these business tycoons, how they built it up, and will educate myself more. Nancy, do you have any question?
I was just wondering, what industry are most of your clients in? The ones that you coach, the business owners?
You know, it's so funny that you say that. I get asked that quite frequently. And I always say, if they have a profit and loss statement, they're my client. We can do it. You know, I've worked in construction, I've worked in property management, I've worked in automotive, I've worked in marketing, I've worked with startups, all different kinds of companies in the energy space. I've been affiliated with Fresno State University's Wind Energy Technology Accelerator. And so I've had the opportunity to work with solar, you know, startup solar companies, not solar panels, but solar solutions for much bigger problems. And also water regeneration and other water solutions. So that's fascinating to me. I'm trying to think what else. Home care services. So a senior, having caregivers that come into the home so people can age in place. Lots over the last 5 years. So it's hard for me to pull you know, every single one, but that's a good smattering of who I've dealt with.
So a lot of the school systems, especially high school, is teaching people how to be a good employee, but there's not much emphasis on how to be a successful business owner. And you've given me an idea. I don't know if you started it. We should integrate into these school systems how people can coach themselves, how they can, whether it's a business or just be more productive. Schools, right now, a lot of schools, and I don't mean to put the teachers down, but it's union workers, and the quality I hear has gone down because it's not qualified teachers. And this isn't everywhere, but certain areas in California. They're
I
not
would
getting
agree with you
education.
100%. My mother has been a teacher of teachers her whole life. She has a master's in early childhood. My sister has a doctorate in early childhood from Columbia. My mom graduated from Fresno State after her years of being a mom, but she graduated from University of Illinois, taught, and then got married, had kids, and then went back and got her master's. And she has said to me more than once that teachers do not become teachers today for the passion of, serving the community and raising good, strong, mentally capable children. They go because they get summers off and Christmas off, and and there's a great retirement plan, and they're not necessarily focused on what is best for the way of learning. And then we've had a lot of politicians who've gotten involved in the process of learning and trying to hold people to a standard like a business without recognizing that they're taking all of the creativity for a teacher out of the equation. And what I mean by that is every single one of us learns in a different way. A different combination of visual, auditory, or tactile learning. And it's a combination for all of us. But some of us are more dominant in different areas. And one of the areas, the tactile learners, have been left behind completely. And you will find, in my opinion, in the last several years, my hand went up. Sorry about that. That's my that AI part of Zoom. One of the things that it is impacting is our labor force that takes care of the things that we need taken care of. And I mean builders, roofers, electricians, plumbers, all of those areas that are a skill and take a certain brain to do. Those are the people that maybe didn't excel enough to go to college originally, but now we have this gaping hole because we've convinced everybody they need to go to college no matter what to be able to be successful. And I know so many people who have become incredibly successful without going to college. Now, I'm not
college, be in debt for 20, 30 years. I wouldn't do
exactly. And I'm not putting college down at all, because I've got 3 college graduates and I am one too. But I also am not a tactile learner. And I think if we had a better education system in terms of identifying how people learn and what their gifts are, instead of, putting the socioeconomic class of their job in the framework and valuing the craftsmanship and the gifts and talents that they bring to the table because of who God created them to be.
Is there a way we can put some proposal together for guidance counselors in the high schools? They're not really trained people how to coach them, but I think that could be a new industry for the workforce.
Yeah, I think so. And I think coaching is an incredible opportunity to give back. And I do a lot of that. I don't let payment be a barrier to having a relationship with a client, because I think that that's not, it's not my personality. It's not the standard in the industry. And it would be anything that a financially savvy business person would say, don't give yourself away. But at the same time, that heart-centered part of me does do that often. And so I do a lot of work with the university, and also in situations where I think I can bring value. And I haven't gotten into the school system per se, but I have met with the superintendent of Fresno County Schools to talk about financial literacy. The state of Wisconsin has an incredibly robust financial literacy program for their K through 12. And they have annual, like we have the Olympics for academic Olympics. They have financial literacy state competitions and teams from their universities. And I'm on their mailing list for the state of Wisconsin's financial literacy materials, because their classroom curriculum is amazing, but we have not valued it.
Like the TV show is academic. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yes, no, absolutely. No, it's just having the bandwidth to be able to do that when we have standardized everything to the point of telling teachers what they have to be teaching at a certain time. My mother actually had a principal walk down the halls and say, I should be able to walk by every single first grade class in one day, down the row, and have all of the classes doing the same thing at the same time. That is not a realistic expectation or a good measure of what a good teacher is.
What do you like to do when you're not engrossed in the coaching business and the financial?
Oh, let's see. I am probably a frustrated chef. I love to cook. It is absolutely my favorite thing. And it's kind of backfired on me, because my significant other says to me, well, why should we go out to dinner? You cook better than any restaurant we ever go to. And I'm like, because I don't want to cook every night. But I love to cook. And so and I mean, bake, cook, everything. And I also grew up with a mom who was a home ec major. So I sew. And so I do all kinds of different things sewing, but my latest feat, I haven't done it. I hadn't sewn in quite some time, because life just gets busy, and that's kind of something that you need hours to do. But I was the maid of honor this fall in my best girlfriend's second marriage. And I made my dress for that. And I made the pattern for the dress because I saw a picture and decided I wanted that dress, and I couldn't find that dress. So that was my biggest creative challenge. So I guess I am a little bit of a tactile learner in that I just decided to tackle that.
There's a YouTuber who she protested against the cost of wedding gowns. She made one out of toilet paper. It was so beautiful.
Oh my goodness. Well, I made mine 34 years ago, but I didn't make it out of toilet paper.
It looks so good.
So you have a Lady Diana's look, though.
Oh,
yeah, you
thank
do.
you. Thank
Did
you.
everybody else
Oh my God.
tell you that?
I actually was told that at my wedding, because I got married in 1986. So a couple of years after she had been married, and I had a, kind of a crown, but it was white. It wasn't diamonds. It was, seed pearls and things. But people said that to me that night. My hair was a little bit shorter too. But I haven't heard that in a long time.
I love Lady Diana.
And so how do you manage to still carry on with that look, and you look fitter than both of us?
Well, the other part of this is my other half is an extreme snowmobiler and an extreme mountain biker. And so I've done both. It's not my gift, but
dangerous.
The extreme mountain biking is, I would totally agree with that. And so it's a matter of knowing your territory, where, terrain, where you want to go. But they're electric mountain bikes, so that they don't kill you in terms of the, having to have all the power to run them. But you have to really know where you're going, because he likes to go to the most treacherous terrain. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'll take the wide path here. I'll meet you at the end, But the snowmobiling, I ride on the back, and that's not a usual thing for that sport. But he has been snowmobiling since he was 3. So of anybody that I could trust my life with, it would be him. And it is incredible to get to the top of a mountain that you couldn't get to in snow. without it. And to see the Sierras from that peak is just addicting. So yeah,
We have some here
that's
called
kinda my
Mission
thing.
Peak.
Mm,
Check it out.
I will. Is that for the snowmobiling or the biking?
No, biking.
Biking, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. We've been to the coast, like Santa Cruz area, and done it, and up in, he has a cabin in the Sierras that is up from Shaver Lake. I don't know if you know Shaver Lake.
Yeah, we do. It's
and
beautiful.
Yeah, so we're about 13 miles above Shaver
Mm.
is where the cabin is, and that's kind of the home base for where we go. But it's pretty amazing. We get some incredible pictures. Yeah.
So
So
just before we end, will you like to tell us about your program so that our audience knows, like
yeah,
where to find you and, some
absolutely. So my website is Brass Tacks with Heart, spelled out, 2 H's between with and heart.com. And I'm a very customized coach. So basically when I sit down with a potential client, I try to discover and uncover what it is that if they could change 2 or 3 things that would make all the difference in their business. And so that's kind of where we start. And then we figure out what those 3 things are and what order we need to do them in. And then we make a plan. And I say when we make a plan and we decide on the goal, then I'm with you until we get to the goal. So sometimes things happen and we get derailed or sidetracked because we discover something else that has to change before we can do this other thing. And we just kind of go through that. And we meet, I'm not one for saying, well, you have this much of my time or this much of my time. I say, here's my cell phone number. I'm here. If you need something, text me. And we meet, usually once a month, once a week, depending on what the goal is and what the time frame is that we need to achieve it. And we, each time we get together, we have action items, and then we get back together and check on the action items and, just discuss what maybe didn't go the way we thought it was going to, and, what way we can go in the future. So one of the things that I also work on is looking at the financial metrics of the business and discovering what profitability is and eliminating as many as we can. The goal is to eliminate the gut decisions and make them factual decisions. So the sleepless nights go away, and the time that you can spend not thinking about your business grows because the decision you made was a good one, because it's based in financial metrics that are sound. And learning, I've had many clients confess to me as we get into this, I let my accountant do that. And one of the things we talk about is building a chart of accounts that makes sense. And what I mean by makes sense is it serves you with information about your business. It is not just about expenses and revenue and paying taxes. And accountants, God bless them, that is their focus, is to make sure that you get everything filed on time and you get it done correctly. But knowing your gross margin versus your net profit, and knowing what you can and cannot control about the bottom line, and knowing if your pricing is accurate and it actually is profitable over time, is really important metrics. And so those are the things we kind of drill into. And again, they don't necessarily open their books to their team, but a lot of times we talk about how do we communicate in a way that inspires your team to be thinking about how they can make things better.
Good. And price range and every other thing they will find on the website, or you decide later on after talking to them?
I'm sorry?
The
Say it one
price
more
range,
Oh, the price range. Yes. It depends on what we're tackling. I have 3 different models. One is, a surgical insert. Okay, we've got a big problem. We need some help. And I'll give a price based on what that is. I have others that say, I really need a sounding board. I'm too alone at the center of this organization, and I'm making I am, constantly, I don't have any time, and I need to find a way to make time. And so we'll do a subscription model where we create a regular date and for a certain amount of time, and we have a routine where we go through things and we check off the boxes and go through all the things that they want to address. But it's an ongoing conversation over a period of time. And it's like a monthly retainer, I would say. And then I have people that come in and say, okay, I have these 3 big things that I want to do, and I need your help. And so then we'll say, okay, how long do you think this is going to take? What are the criteria of the elements of this? And, and then there may be a coaching contract that comes into play that is, 6 months, 9 months, a year, depending on what we're trying to do. And it really just depends. And oftentimes I end up working with the leader for a period of time. And then they say, I do financial literacy training workshops that are really an overview of how money flows through a business, but it ends up in them having identified some low-hanging fruit that they can make changes on. And then I help them set goals of time to make those changes and reap the rewards of those as a team. So it's kind of a culture building. It's kind of a, it's definitely a training foundation for financial understanding of the company, which makes them evolve the way they contribute and what their decision making is based on. I had another coach say to me, you need to sell the fact that you can help them help their employees make good decisions, because I think that's the number one complaint is my people don't make good decisions, and they're good people, but they're not making good decisions. And I think that's probably the bottom line, is that together we figure out a better way to communicate that helps them to make better decisions.
By listening to you, I can see the different loopholes in a business, and where you need to plug it in. And you being in the business, you cannot see. Somebody from outside can, highlight them and can point out.
Well, in every single business, regardless of what it is, has a product to sell and has revenue coming in and has expenses to create that product, whether they're labor hours or they're parts, or whether they're, mental hours. So being able to create the communication and the vulnerability with the leader to be able to say, look, you're getting a team member that, and I, whenever I started a new job, whether it's Catholic Charities or Rogers Benefit Group or the bank, I always used to say, I'm the most valuable to you in the first 90 days, because I don't know what we've always done. And I don't see the routine and whose feathers are going to get ruffled if we do it a different way and all of those things. So I can very innocently say, have you considered this? Have you considered that? And I see things that they don't see. And so you're exactly right. When we're too close to it, that's really tough. And a lot of founders, CEOs, people who start businesses have this incredible idea of what their life is going to look like when they, say, I'm going to do this business so that I have financial freedom, or that I have time with my family, or all of those things. And then their life gets eaten up in getting the business off the ground. And when they get the business off the ground, they don't know how to pull out of all of the things that they've been touching from the very beginning, because that was cost effective. I don't have enough money to have an HR person. I don't have enough money to have, I got to get this thing off the ground and then I can do all that. Then they start hiring people and they are siloed into your HR, your accounting, your production, your sales, whatever it is. And they don't know how all these things interact. And they don't have the financial literacy training to understand the big picture. So you end up with a lot of bad decisions. So how do we create the awareness of each other? Well, that's kind of one of the things I do.
It's like composing music, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that's the other thing I love to do is sing. Besides cooking, sewing, I'm a singer. Although you'd not know it. I was sick over the holiday and
Can we
my
have a
throat is
demo?
not recovered. What?
A demo,
What?
please. Singing.
Oh, no. I'm a shower singer these years, but I used to sing a lot, you know, but I had the trifecta. December 18th was positive for COVID and the flu at the same time.
Um,
And the trifecta is I didn't have to do Christmas dinner, because nobody wanted to come to my house.
So,
So,
one piece I want to present to you is you can share with people whom you coach. You know, part of
mhm.
Global Women Power, we run a program. It's called Digi Women. You know, we train women all over the world in digital technology, you know, and they can
Ah,
become virtual assistants to people, you know, and
mhm,
they are also, say, if it is from India, so you don't have to pay that much, you know, or from other
right.
country. So that you can keep in your head, you know, proposing to people, and then they
Mhm.
can find jobs for them.
Well, and you know, the other thing is mentioned I'm in the sisterhood of the coaching sisterhood. Um, a lot of coaches use virtual assistants
Mm.
um, for, you know, all of the
Administrative work.
things, admin things. That's always, I was like, can't pull that right now. And of course, one of my coaching friends says, yeah, and you don't want to be the one to call the guy who hasn't paid you. You want somebody else to do that. You know, I said, yeah, that's true. Um, so that would be an interesting, if you could give me the information
I
to,
will.
like, if they wanted to hire somebody, how did they go about doing that?
Right,
Somebody affiliated with your organization.
right, right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we definitely
Thank
have
you very
resources
much.
for
And
that.
my mind, I'm having thinking in my mind that, you know, we should put a seminar before and sign up more women, because my focus is on women folk, and
I
invite
Oh,
you.
I'd love that. I
Yeah.
would love that. I have done a couple of presentations about, and if they were specifically women business owners, I
Yeah.
could definitely do something that would be catered to them, that they would walk away with some
And one workshop
good.
for sewing and one workshop for cooking.
You bet. You bet. I love that part. I haven't written any curriculum for that, though. You'd have to just watch me. But yeah, I had my biggest claim to fame, and this kind of a joke, is my middle son had a friend in college whose girlfriend was, well, they were both from Australia. So it was a foreign student he met in college, and the girlfriend came with the boyfriend, and my son brought them to my house for American Thanksgiving in 2019. And this last spring, she reached out to my son and said, well, I broke up with him, but I really want to come have Thanksgiving at your mom's. And so I said, wow, Dom, I'm sure it's not, and Dom is my son. I said, I'm sure it's not as much fun to say, hey, I have a gal that's coming all the way from Australia because my mom's a good cook. But, you know, I can use that line. You probably have another way of spinning that. So we had a very international Thanksgiving this year, which was kind of fun. So my oldest son, his college roommate is Indian, and he and his wife and their son came as well. So we had Australian, Indian, and then my oldest son's girlfriend is Bahamian, so born and raised in
Wow.
the Bahamas. So we had a very international Thanksgiving this year. But I claim it's all because they like my food.
So Alpha and I have done some seminars teaching women, like mothers coming back to work, how to start and run a quick small business. And we've had biz referral networking, business owners coming together, and they, exchange who they are and refer clients to each other. I'd love to see that, start that out there where you are.
Yeah,
Come out there
yeah.
too.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I am on the Fresno Women's Chamber of Commerce, and I'm on the board of directors, and that is a focus for that group as well, you know, mentoring and networking
Say
So
the
we
name
have
again. What is the name?
Fresno County Women's Chamber of Commerce.
Okay.
And so it is we're 200 and I think are 260 or 290 members, and we meet monthly and have women guest speakers that are, you know, powerful women in their roles, and it's a really great group. I really enjoy it. So it's not quite as philanthropic as what you are doing in terms of reaching out to other countries and other socioeconomic levels, but it is definitely a powerful network of women in Fresno that are really accomplished business women.
So we have
Yeah.
a hub of professionals that help people, anywhere from like social media marketing, web developing, virtual assistants, marketing, a whole sorts of things. They don't know how to do incorporation. So we have a network of professionals that do that. That's affordable. I don't know. We work something out with them. That's Alpha's department, but this is how we want to help. It's not like everything be free. If you keep giving the fish and don't teach how to catch the fish, what good is having the fish?
Exactly. Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. And I think there is dignity in learning how to fish. And that is really important to me as
Very,
well.
very
you
important.
know. Lots of things that I learned as a director of Catholic Charities and being involved at a national level with the other directors of Catholic Charities across the country. And that is, you know, something that I think we have missed the boat on as a country in terms of the way we serve the underserved. And I really feel like human dignity is such an incredibly important piece of healing for people who have been through trauma. And there's a lot of trauma in poverty.
Of course, I could see your heart in the whole
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I definitely am a softie in terms of the Irish. I always blame the tears in my eyes. Let's say, oh, it's my Irish coming out again. But I just I'm a caregiver. It's just, you know, built into my DNA. And whether I'm caring for someone's business or for their children or for, you know, giving them the shirt, the extra coats at my house, you know, it's just part of who I am.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Hopefully
you.
we'll see each other again.
Yes, I was so tickled to get your invitation, Nancy. I just was very flattered and very happy to do it. And I hope I didn't ramble on too much, but I really do appreciate
Not
it.
at all. I'm
That's what was
surprised.
needed.
I didn't even introduce myself. I said, hey, can we feature you? Just a quick email.
Yeah, no, it's great. I looked up global women power. Global women power. Okay. I looked it up and I did watch the episode with the military gal that lives in Alaska. That was a good episode.
Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force.
Yes. And I really enjoyed that too. And I thought, oh, okay, now I know kind of what this is about. But I always want to say that I just really appreciated the invitation.
Thank you. We'll see you again.
Yes, please. And feel free to reach out. You know, you have my email and I'm happy to, one of the things I do is a lot of networking. So if there's something that you think I might be able to make an introduction or whatever, I'm happy to do that.
That's
hey,
what
if you happen to know any distinguished women you think we should feature, let me know. You can send me a message or something.
Okay, I could do that. Yeah, I will. You know, we're in the process. The chamber is starting a new awards. We've had the Mother of the Year thing for years and years and years. And so we've decided we're going to evolve the role and have inspiring women as our, you know, professional inspire. And so we have a community and entrepreneur and then a student. And the event is, I believe, in March. And so we're just going through the nomination process right now, and then we'll have a luncheon. So there will be 3 winners that come out of that, and maybe all 3 of them might be good key people for you to interview. I know there is a Marjorie Mason Center here in Fresno is a battered women's shelter, and we had their executive director as a speaker for the chamber 2 months ago, I think, or 3 months ago. Incredible. Fresno County is not to brag, really, the worst county in the state for abuse, domestic violence. And maybe number 2. I mean, there might be one other, but I mean, we're right up there.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's not good. And the more the economy goes the way it's going, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah.
And so that is a really needed service, but such a crippling problem. And so female entrepreneurialism is important, because when we believe that we can support ourselves, then we're not as desperately trapped in those really dysfunctional situations. Yeah.
Okay.
All
See
right,
you
you
again,
guys.
and we'll
Thank
talk
you.
more. Yeah, bye.
Yes, for sure. Bye-bye.
Bye.